Good evening, everyone. This is the May 19th, 2025 meeting of the Park and Rec Committee of the City of Victoria. As we usually do, we'll call the meeting to order and we'll do a roll call and just say your name and we'll go around the table. Starting with you, Alex.
Alex Hahn.
Terry Cope.
Adam Dewar.
Chris Casey.
Larry Schultz.
Amanda Cahill.
Mary Larson.
Jacob Paul.
Jenna Smith.
Okay, thank you, and thanks everyone for being here this evening. The first order of business is approving the minutes from the last regular meeting, which was on April 21st of 2025. Those minutes were sent to you in the packet. If there are no additions or corrections, motion would be in order to accept those minutes.
So moved.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the minutes from the April 21st, 2025 meeting. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no.
Nay.
Okay. Nay. The minutes are approved. Thank you. Next item that we have is petitions, proclamations, suggestions, or complaints from citizens, committee members, or staff. So does anybody have anything in particular they'd like to bring up this evening?
I've heard a lot of compliments on the signage.
Okay,
New signage.
good to know.
Yeah, I have as well.
Okay. Is that completely installed now, or are we still?
They have a couple that they're finishing up, some of the smaller parks, and then they'll be doing some restoration of the ground around it, but a lot of them are pretty much complete. So we will be officially announcing the completion by posting some stuff online, but the majority of them are done, including our larger signs that are more community regional parks. So it's great.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. Any other comments?
Victoria and Bloom. I know that was super popular with some residents that I heard, so
Okay.
really good event.
Good to hear.
All right, and then some upcoming stuff from us. I potentially at a future meeting, you guys might get the chance to meet our new Parks and Recreation assistant. He started today, and he will be with us this summer. His name is Ben Johnson. He is a student from South Dakota State University, completing his degree program in recreation and sports management. So we get to have him with us this summer, which will be great. We do have the Victoria Baseball Little Leagues coming up very soon. They start the first week in June, and we've got T-ball, which happens on Mondays, and Coach Pitch, which happens on Tuesdays. And then we will dig a lot more into this evening, but we do have some summer engagement events coming up. These ones are open, and the public is welcome to join us. And so we've got two that are located at future park sites, and then one is at our Lions Park and the Noterman Trail. So we'll get more into the actual engagement events here in a second, but those are coming up, so mark your calendars.
Okay, thank you, Jenna. There is no old business for this evening, and we'll move right into the new business, which is consider recommendations for the Park Development Survey, and Jenna's going to lead us through that.
All right, so first I'm going to take a step back from the park development surveys and just kind of go over some public engagement strategies that we had talked about previously. So Council has approved our Parks and Recreation public engagement policy. And so with that policy, with major developments such as the ones that we'll be discussing this evening, we are employing at least a minimum of 3 engagement strategies for developments like this, sometimes more. In this case, some of the ones that are being conducted in order to gain feedback this summer is first this development survey that we will be discussing here soon, as well as the pop-up engagement events. So both of these locations will be discussed at all 3 of these, as well as additional feedback just for the parks and trail system in general. So there's 3 events with that. We will also be talking about this whenever we are tabling at certain community events, such as the Victoria Farmers Market and the Truck Rodeo, which both happen in July. And then obviously your feedback is one of those engagement opportunities that I welcome. And so today we'll be talking about the development of the survey, but then it will also come back to this Parks and Recreation Committee once we get the survey results later this fall. And so you guys will see that information again and be able to provide not only your own personal insights, but insights that you glean from the survey as well. So for the development survey, this one specifically is going to be focused on two particular locations, the Huntersbrook Future Park site and the Marsh Hollow Future Park site. Both sites have been dedicated from new park developments, and we have funding that has been acquired through park dedication fees to be allotted to fund these developments. So these are the two specific ones that will be this focus for this park public engagement this summer. However, with any type of feedback and engagement, we want to gather information from the public that will help drive future decisions. And so with the survey that was shared with you, you would have seen questions specifically about those two locations, but then just information in general that can be applied to future developments, because we do understand that feedback fatigue is a thing with our public, and so we want to make sure that we're utilizing their time the best way that we possibly can. And so with surveys like this, we want to keep it short and sweet, but also get the most bang for our buck for how much information we can glean from it. So with these park sites, we do have the two locations. Both of them are a little over 5 acres. The Huntersbrook Park location is slightly larger, but there's one major distinction that I do want to draw your attention to with that, and it's with the Marsh Hollow Park. So if you look down here, this is the Marsh Hollow Park, and then the northern one is the Huntersbrook Park location. So Marsh Hollow, if you look through, you see this tree wooded area. This is actually a protected wetland area. So when we communicate out to the public, that's something that we are going to want to make sure that it's very clear that this 5 acres includes a protected wetland area. And so this entire portion of it will remain as natural green space, and so it will be undeveloped. However, the rest of this section is something that we can utilize the feedback with to develop in a way that suits the community's needs. This park also, there is a community like HOA rec center, not rec center, but like what are the clubhouse? That's what those are called. There's a clubhouse that's located right here, so it backs up to the park, and so that would be a community feature for this neighborhood, but it doesn't. It isn't necessarily a public entity, so it is operated by that HOA. So this is Marsh Hollow. And then just a short 0.3 mile walk this direction is our Huntersbrook Park location right off of County Road 11. And so this one, there is some elevation grading that would need to be taken into consideration, as well as over here, because on the south side of Marsh Hollow, it slopes up pretty dramatically. And so there is quite a hill on this side. But then this one does have some elevation concerns at Huntersbrook as well. And so those are some things that I did want to just mention in terms of when we're thinking about these locations and how we're talking to the public about it, because those are some things, obviously, if we have to address major like grading issues, that does increase the cost of development. And so if we're looking for like a completely flat field, that doesn't necessarily mean it would be cheaper than a playground or, you know, something like that, whereas potentially we could play into some of the grading options with the playground because we could play into the hill. So there is a lot of different ways that the engineers and landscape architects could work with these spaces. But the biggest goal is to identify what the community wants, what their needs are, and differentiating these two parks enough to where we're still meeting the needs of the community, but also making sure that these locations are separate and unique, because they are, one, very close together, and we have gotten very clear vision from our city council that we want to be unique and we want to provide unique amenities to our residents. So,
Before you go on, just a couple of comments or even a question. These two parks are community parks. They're not just a neighborhood park.
correct.
And the other thing is these parks will serve more than what we see on this screen.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
future developments, and there's already some that are off the map here that,
Right. Yeah, so we've talked about other developments that potentially have come through. We've reviewed some sketch plots in a little bit more of that southwest area that will be coming. There is a lot of farmland that is around some of these developments, and so there's some things to consider. And so that's why with the park development survey, there's also questions that are more broader scale of like, what do you want to continue to see? And we'll use the information we get from this survey as well as past surveys to continue to shape a bigger picture of what all of these parks can look like. And so that is something too that we want to consider, that maybe these aren't the right spaces, but a future location could be. But the only problem with the future locations is we don't know what those are. And so we want to make sure that we're doing the balancing act of addressing the needs that we have right now with future planning in mind.
Do we have an approximate size of the usable acreage for the Marsh Hollow? Taken into
It's
account as well?
about half of the acreage.
Okay.
How does parking usually look with kind of both? Is that something we have to think about?
So it depends on what amenities that we're providing. And so if we're doing soccer fields or a splash pad or something like that, those would be things that would have an impact on regional draw. And so we would have to take into consideration that there would be parking in some of these. If it is open green space, you could potentially minimize what some of that parking looks like. So it depends on what the amenities are and the scope of the project.
How much parking is at Rhapsody Park? I'm just curious. That's not a park I know very well, but I know size-wise, it's about the
Yes,
same.
they have approximately, I'm literally counting parking spots in my head. I think they have about 10 parking spots.
Okay. Which park was that, Mary?
Rhapsody. Yeah, and Rhapsody, if you guys are familiar with that one, it does have a ball field, a little bit of an open space, and a small playground, and a shelter building, an outdoor shelter building.
Okay, that's helpful.
But yes, that would be a comparable size park.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions?
Yeah, and it does, for Rhapsody, it does get used for outside organization,
yes.
softball. So those parking spaces for the practices are utilized
Yes.
fully.
In the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it comes to things like this too, street parking is part of the parking that's taken into consideration. And so sometimes it might not be we need to take over a whole parking lot to accommodate for those spaces, but there would need to be access to parking on some of these. And I will say, again, another consideration with this Marsh Hollow is this section of Creekside Lane is steep. It's pretty steep. So doing some parallel parking on that would be kind of fun. All right. So moving on. So when I'm going to open up this actual survey, and before I do, I'm going to give you a little bit of insight to some of the things that I did after sending it to you. So depending upon when you looked at the survey, I might have added some things. But things to keep in mind is what's working in the survey, what do we need to improve, and what's missing. So if there's glaring questions that it's like, why didn't you ask this? Please bring that up. If there's some questions that maybe we need a little bit more insight in terms of like, how do we ask this? How is it being received from the public? Obviously, I have been in the trenches with this, so it makes sense to me, but that doesn't mean it's going to make sense to the public. So please feel free to share which, if there's any that aren't very clear. And then we'll talk about what's working to make sure that those things stay consistent as we continue on.
Jana, can I just clarify that the audience for the survey, is it the entire community?
It is the entire community.
Okay.
So there will be some targeted notifications to the neighborhoods. So we will send physical mailers to the neighborhoods that are in the direct radius of this. However, the public is going to be able to be taking the survey. Anyone is welcome to the public engagement events. We are going to be talking to our associations if they're looking for field space. Field space is at a premium. We're pretty much everybody says we're constantly short. So we'll be talking to associations for what kind of field space or ball field, soccer field, anything like that that they're looking for to see what that kind of need is looking like, as well as just general users to the area. So they might be neighborhood parks, but they might be serving a larger audience. So before I open up the survey, some things that I did include is, like, I did change some of the introductions to the sections just to provide a little bit more context, as well as including the acreage for those. Something that isn't in there right now but will be coming is we are going to put together a prettier map than the one that I just showed you to help identify the shape of the parks and kind of indicate what some of that gradient is to try to help the public get a little bit of that. So that visual is coming and is not included in what I'm going to show you now. But unless I hear a glaring, no, that's not useful, then we will work to include that in.
I think it's very helpful. I think a lot of people don't even know where Huntersburg and Marsh Harbor are.
Yes.
Unless you live in that area.
And the budgets we don't know for those, that gets set at a later time, or is that something that's?
So the budgets, we do have a park development thing, but that is not something that we're going to ask the public for feedback on, because that's something that staff and city council will work on. All right.
I did see your including of the acreage there.
All right. So you caught some of my edits.
I think that was helpful. I think maybe too, because we've all kind of referenced it for like getting an idea of the space, is maybe you could even say this is similar. Think of this as a similar community park to Rhapsody, so that when people are thinking of it, they have kind of a template, if you will, in mind. And know that it's not like as big as Lions or D-Time.
Awesome. All right. So very generic.
Also, it took me like over 20 minutes for completion of the survey. It says 7 there, so.
So that number is not identified by me. It's based on the average person taking it.
It was really hard to
The more
up and down changing.
The more the people are taking and actually doing it, that number will change. So that number is indicated by the software.
Okay.
So, but that's good to know.
I know, I was like, okay. I mean, I was obviously reviewing the questions in great detail to
Yes.
see, but like, it was like, I was doing it on my phone. And to like scroll up, like, oh, item number 27, I actually want it 15. Did take some time.
All right. So as we go through this, I'm going to kind of just click through. If there's something that I need to explain, I will explain, but feel free. This is the time for you guys to share your feedback. And so when it comes to the slides, I don't think you need me to read them to you, but I will stop and I will pause. And so this one is just a simple intro to the section. And then we move into our first question. So this first section is, the purpose of this section is mainly just to gather, are you currently utilizing our spaces? And if so, who in your household is doing it? Because that will also kind of gauge, like, are people actively engaged? Like, are these people that are regularly utilizing our parks? Things like that. This question specifically also helps identify like a theme for the park.
If somebody checks other, is there a place for them to make a comment?
You type it in if you click it. If you click on it, you can type in your answer.
Yeah, but, okay.
Yeah, right here, like it
Yeah,
literally.
okay.
Mhm. And then for this one, there was a question that I had. I had no idea how to split it out, but so I have it broken up into this. The only one that I had a question on that I would like your feedback on is this one. Should I break it out into a different chunk? And if so, what chunk of ages?
If you broke it out, I'd say 18 to 40 and 41 to 64. I don't know if it makes that much difference. I mean, is there a lot of, I mean, it's basically young adults and I don't want to say middle age. Because I'm middle.
One of the technical terms that I've heard before is the U40, so the under 40, and then the O40, so the over 40. So that's like a classification that I've seen. If you guys don't think it's beneficial and it won't impact the feedback much, that was just a question that I had on here.
It might be, I don't think it hurts. I think it might differentiate, you know, if we get stuck on some of the results and it's leaning, I mean, it's, and all split up and we can divide it further, then you know if we're meeting the needs of those under 40 and those over. I do think there's some differences. I think the under 40 is probably a little more active and generally, or would maybe enjoy some more active type activities than people that were over.
I just think that the activities are different. I think when you're a 50-year-old, you're going to be doing different things actively than you are when you're 25.
Sure.
So I just think that's a big range.
In marketing, they break it out like 18 to 34, 35 to 54, 55 plus usually. That's kind of a standard demographic breakout, but Larry's works too.
There could be a little confusion with this because maybe parents are bringing their kids to.
You can check multiple things.
You can check multiple? Oh, I check all that apply. Okay.
Yep. All right, so maybe break out the adults just to get a,
Extra data point.
yeah, okay. All right, I will add that to my feedback, thank you. This one is also, it literally lists out every single park that we have here. And kind of an intention for this one is some of these parks are already very much themed. And so if the park that they visit the most is Kirklocken, then maybe I know that this person is emphasizing those natural greenscapes versus somebody who is picking a park that's heavily ball fields or something like that.
This one was hard for me to choose from, honestly. I wish it was like you can select 3. Because
See if I can make that work. I'm not sure if I can, but maybe.
The other optionality, which one felt
Maybe like a
very
top
limited.
3.
yeah, because I was like, well, is it for my recreation with my kids, you know, for fun, or is it because I have to visit it every Monday, Wednesday for softball? You know, like, I love that practice is in our community, right? But it's a really different use.
I kind of like the forcing people to pick one, but
Okay.
I guess it comes down to me, I mean, I think it's a really good point, and it was tough to answer, but I think, you know, what are we trying to get here? And if we're trying to get that people primarily use the parks for, like Jenna said, you know, if they pick the one they pick Wasserman, that's telling us they like the nature stuff. So it kind of, if we have them do more than one and they pick Wasserman and Lions, that doesn't tell us anything other than they like those 2 parks, you know. But so I guess maybe from the what data do we want to see at the end? But I agree, it was hard to pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think frequency, to Amanda's point, is sometimes it's dictated by necessity as opposed to like true use and enjoyment, right?
Yep.
So if you're answering this for how, you know, use of enjoyment versus frequently, you might get,
Different answer.
yeah, a data set that's just a little off.
And I'm curious, I know like Lakeside and Lake Town, like they're both really close to these 2 developments, but I have a feeling most don't even know those are parks there. So I'm curious if they even know the ones near them already.
This is also a great question to ask them if they know their parks.
Yeah, 'cause there's already really good amenities over there that you probably don't want to repeat.
So I think, you know, a good point's been raised here by, you know, a couple of members here, you know, Adam and Amanda here. So maybe it's a question, which city of Victoria Park do you most frequently visit for recreation or enjoyment? I mean, because you're right, if your kid's playing softball and you go twice a week to whatever park it is, that may not be the park you'd go to otherwise, or I don't know, what are we trying to, or is that good information to have because that park's being used
Utilized.
for the ball field.
Yeah.
Even though it might not be my favorite thing to do, but
Yeah, could we just do two, one for leisure and one for events or something along those lines?
Necessity.
Might be easier than putting a
Necessity or
why question.
Events. What's that?
Yeah, I think that might be easier than like asking for a reason.
Yeah.
Right,
Like the data would be easier to aggregate probably.
Sure.
so 2 questions.
Because we could use the data for if there's a lot of people going to one specific spot for necessity/event or whatever it may be, we'd be able to use that information to say, all right, well, maybe we should take a look and make sure that that's being kept up as often as it should, and make, because it's getting a ton more use than we even expected that it was getting. Give us good data there. Then leisure, we could probably make judgments on the style of park that people enjoy.
okay.
Yeah, so anything that's like scheduled or programmed or an event is different than like going to the playground for fun.
Okay, so how about I word it to asking which City of Victoria park do you most frequently visit for leisure activities? And then a second one asking the same question except for most frequently visited for scheduled events or programs. Does that work? Does that capture
Maybe put practices too, just so people,
events,
you know, because I don't really consider practice
do
like
that.
an event.
But that's good to know though, too,
Yeah.
as others stated, that, you know, if people are largely using it for practices, you know, that's saying.
Should I say
that's an
practices or just
important-
sports?
Important reason.
Sporting,
Sporting events?
sporting event/practice or
Yes,
sporting practice, sports practice.
or practice or games. I mean, yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of users would have different, you know, data.
Absolutely, this is great. All right. Next question. All right, so this brings us into our next section, and so this is the section where we're actually specifically talking about Hunters Brook and Marsh Hollow. So this is the one that if you caught it, if you went through it before I edited this, because I did this today. So if you read it beforehand, you want to see it. So I'm going to give you a second to read through it. I did try to include some information, but please share what you think in regards to introducing this section.
And is this where the image will be?
It won't be on this slide. It'll be on the specific pages for Marsh Hollow and for Hunters Brook.
A question, because these will be community parks, it sounds like parking will be included at both locations. If there's a selected feature at each park or at one of the parks, say like a tennis courts or a softball field, does that dictate more parking?
The different amenities do dictate that, so it would be kind of hard for me to say how much parking would need to be taken into consideration.
Okay.
I mean, I can reference parking.
I think it would be an interesting reference point when people are making, I think it would be something people would be concerned about specifically after the fact if they didn't know that the decision they were making had other
It would
implications.
shrink the land potentially.
Yeah.
Sure, I can do that. Would you think that a good place would be to keep it in this
And this is kind of what triggered.
intro section? Okay. All right. Any other feedback from this page? Okay. All right. Pretty straightforward question. And if they don't know it, they can look it up. This will force them to look it up. Because I will say, just in case, I don't know if you guys did this, but it is Googleable. You can search it in Google and it does pop up the locations. It says it's temporarily closed on Google because it's not a developed site, but you can Google them.
I do have a question on this one. Because they're so close together, does this, because I when it comes to giving out surveys, I have to do it at work all the time. You want to get rid of as many questions as possible. And I don't know how much value this will add because of how close they are to each other. I mean, 0.3
It
miles.
might impact for future developments because you weren't here when we did the sketch plat reviews for other ones, but there is some potential growth the other direction. And so if those people are heavily saying that they want a specific thing at this park, and then those people are also saying it there, then it might be something that maybe we flip-flop, put one here and there.
See, okay.
Because, so this question is a little bit more helpful for city staff in the grand scheme of the planning. And I guess the only thing with this one is that it's probably the quickest question that we have if they know where the parks are,
Yep, fair enough.
if they know where they are.
Is it valuable or not valuable to know how far somebody is from the park? I mean, they're within what's our standard half mile?
Oh, yes.
We had something
that
before
multiple
that we
times.
want to have a park within,
Yeah,
is that still a thing, or?
it is still a thing, but I'm not sure how it would apply to this question.
Okay, I guess maybe not specific. The only thing is that if somebody lives, if I live a long ways from this, so what I have to say about it might be different than somebody that lives within a quarter mile of it. And
Can you,
if we know what those are, so people like myself that are filling this out and saying, it would be important for us to say some of the things we want, but it might be nice to know what people that live closer to want. I mean, is there a difference?
What if I restructured this, instead of it being like a drop down, I do a multiple, not, you can't check multiple, but like a multiple choice option where you check one option and one of the other options can be other, and we can say like specifically on that one, like describe or name the park that you live closest to or something.
That'd be good. That was my thing. I live in Huntersbrook. I didn't know there was a lacrosse field half a mile away. Like for me, I probably wouldn't check lacrosse field if I knew it was so close.
can you collect addresses, or are you not allowed to ask for that?
They're anonymous surveys.
Okay.
I don't know if we can make it so like I live close to Marsh Hollow or I live close to Huntersbrook or neither. Like,
True. Because I would say,
because it's, I think we want to know if the person answering is close to one of them, or if they're not close to either of them,
You live within a mile or so.
We have to
Yeah.
define close because I'm close. Sure. You might
yeah,
have to
do you live within a certain distance?
Maybe just use our standard, half
Live within
mile,
half
or
mile.
even expand it to a little bit more, because I think to me, and maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like it would be valuable to know, as we, put this whole thing together, that I think we're gonna be able to say, okay, people that answered, they live within a half mile of this park, these are the
Their
things that
top.
they'd like, and those that live in the greater community, including those that live in the park, or within that distance, have something else, so, that might be helpful information to know. Cross-referencing was the word I was trying to come up with.
Yeah.
Tabulation.
There is a noise consideration too, so if I'm in that neighborhood and this survey goes out and the city, or the response, if they want something that's, I'm gonna throw out pickleball just because it's loud. We would not put pickleball in either one of these parks probably because it's in a neighborhood, the houses are pretty close. So we wouldn't put pickleball there, but you wouldn't want somebody lobbying for that if they don't even live close to it, it wouldn't bother them, right? But the neighborhood should have some say in things that's gonna impact the noise, the traffic, that kind of thing. So I would want the neighborhood to have a little bit more say in what goes in those parks.
So what if I did two questions, and it was, do you live within a half mile of the Marsh Hollow Park? Question 1, yes or no. Question 2, do you live within half mile of the Huntersbrook Park location? Yes or no?
yeah, I think
Do it
that's
that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
because there's probably a couple people who are within a half mile of both.
I would hit both.
Yeah, you totally could.
Run.
So then you're really a part of this neighborhood.
pretty big spaces, which will be helpful to know, like, the broader community, though, like ice arena, if you want an ice arena or like an ice rink. Got enough space for it.
One of the things that we've talked about in the past, and I know that the council is interested in, and Jenna alluded to it, is, you know, what park amenities do we not have? And can we use these bigger park areas to not have the same thing in each park, but to have something different where
Unique.
people can access it? So that's, so this is more than just a neighborhood park too. So we want to be sensitive to what they want, but it's a little bigger.
Great. All right, and then so these next two questions are the exact same, except one's for Marsh Hollow, one's for Hunters Brook. And again, this is intentional to try to grasp, knowing that there's two, which one do you want in those specific locations? And then so for the options that are listed here, there's quite a few options. And for the most part, they're geared towards, at least if you select one of them, like that one thing might be able to fit. It doesn't mean that everything in your order might be able to fit, but the things listed on here are things that could be taken into consideration for it, depending upon, like, obviously one might work for a sledding hill, but the other one might not. These ones were kind of identified as to like which could potentially actually fit in the locations. And then it's just a ranking system from there.
Well, I would argue that, would we put pickleball courts in either one of these? I mean, I don't think we would.
I would hope the public would see that, but that's one of those things that we just need to ask that question.
Is there a way to give a size frame of reference to these? Maybe to say like you could pick this and this as like a combination?
So that's something that we're looking into doing at our public engagement events. Through this type of software, it's kind of hard to like I tried to see if I could be like, all right, you've got this much land, this will fit here, but we just don't have the software to be able to design that. I would love to, and in the future we might do that. But for sure at our public engagement events, we are working on an interactive way to like literally pick your piece and it fits, it doesn't. Kind of like if you've ever done like design a bedroom, the bed can fit here and this could go here, but you know, something like that. So we will do an interactive one at the public engagement events, but we couldn't quite fit it into the survey.
So as I went through this, and I think Amanda alluded to it earlier, and I don't know if there's any way around it, probably not, but when there's more things to rank, it's more difficult. And when I looked at this, and maybe I had two things I think are really important, so I'm gonna rank those first and second, and the rest is just gonna be, either I'm gonna leave it blank, or I'm gonna just put garbage 3, 4, 5.
Let me see if, because I might be able to make this more clear, but I'm pretty sure you can, well, I guess it automatically.
It'd be nice that you could rank and then make a good chunk of them like NA.
NA.
Or like just don't
me see
strike
it.
them out so that
Yeah.
Let me see if I can do that.
I mean,
Yeah.
the thing you eliminate there is the overall ranking of what they are, but the same thing, it's garbage information if there's only two things that you're interested in, so.
And then after I did one, I actually just skipped the next one.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I've spent a lot of time ranking this very carefully. And then I was like, okay, these parks are right next door to each other. Me, I'm not in that neighborhood. I just skipped the next one because it was like so lengthy.
Yeah, good point, Amanda.
So yeah, I would be for having the option of not having to move them or rank them maybe all the way. Like pick your top 5.
Rank your top 5,
Yeah.
or
Because
Top 5.
honestly, are more
Three, only
than
a
5
few
amenities gonna fit? Like if we think of Rhapsody, there's the,
Well, it's not a matter of in what order would you fit all of them. It's if you had to pick which would you cut first, kind of deal.
Is there any way that we could like combine some of these, because like to get away from the amount? So like, could we just do playground and then instead of grills, picnic areas covered and uncovered, could you just do picnic
So I will
areas,
say,
grills?
if I do that, then I'll need a separate question for playgrounds, because in designing playgrounds, it is very hard to differentiate playground versus the age groups, because the equipment is incredibly different. So I could do.
Would
a
we
whole
be able
separate
to
section.
use the playground or the information from the prior question of what age they come to the playground with, or the parks with, and use that data to influence what type of playground?
I love the
Potentially, if-
playground optionality, but having a toddler and seeing all the different types of playgrounds you can find yourself at that work or don't work, or you age out of, or that was one of the best pieces of the optionality I found in the survey as a parent.
Yeah.
I think making it like check boxes might be just easier to use. I mean, I appreciate ranked choice sorting from a data perspective, but as a usability thing, I think with this many choices, it could be difficult.
It's overwhelming.
Sure.
So the general feedback is there's too many choices to get.
I'll refigure how to do it so that you don't have to rank every single one.
Yeah, I think it's fine to list the things. It's just that after when I was going through this, there's like, okay, there's 2 or 3 things that I think are real important, and I mark as those were easy, and then the rest to me it was just 4, 5, 6. I mean,
Yeah.
it provides meaningless information
Absolutely, fair point.
after a point.
And then not to add additional, but I did notice there wasn't basketball court, which is kind of different than other sports fields or tennis court. And then we also added Gaga pits to parks this last year for that 15 to 12 and 12 plus age group. So I don't know if there's, room for those.
Yeah, basketball needs to be there for sure.
All right, I will add those in, and I will refigure how to make that quicker.
Or I don't know if there's a way to like let people rank like categories of things. Like I want a playground as number 1, or like rank the category, but then show questions that ask like specific like
This software won't let me do it that way. I could split it out and ask more questions, but then it's more questions.
yeah.
That's what I was trying to cut down on, is more questions.
So the goal of this is try to determine the top things that people want. So when it comes to, after this, then the engagement in the neighborhood, and then when it comes back here for discussion, that we would know that, there's out of the 25 or 27 things on here that people really want 5 of them, and we can focus on that as
Yeah.
opposed to getting lost in the other stuff.
Right. All right, and I'm assuming the same thought process for the ranking goes on this one. Yes.
It's something you have to Google. I know probably putting images with these is hard, so expect to Google.
I can see if we can potentially create a graphic.
When we talk about I know what a zip line is. Are we talking about like the one that's at Madeline Park?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not like a canopy trees.
Yeah,
That would be really, really cool, though.
that's my grandkids' favorite thing at that park is that zip line.
Oh, yeah. It's usually a big draw.
I did, again, I don't know if you want to add more, but another popular recent playground feature is like those roller slides are back. And they're kind of like built into the hills in a lot of communities. So I don't know if, like, you know, the ones that pinch your finger real bad, but they are fun, right? Like, it's like, wow, this is making a comeback. And I was Googling landscape structures out of Delano today to see, like, what are the new features.
And which I will say some of these, like this is to just get like a general idea of some of that. When we work with our landscape architects and these companies that do things like that, they also put together proposals based on the feedback that I give them of we're looking for these kinds of slides, this kinds of inclusivity, you know, these swings, like something like that. Then they usually will give us a proposal and say, this is what actually fits in the space that you're giving us. These are the types of amenities that we're suggesting. And then I'll be like, you know what? You've got 3 of those traditional belt swings, but we really want a friendship swing. Can you make that work? And they'll be like, yes, we can, but we have to cut out all the belt swings. So like, you know, it's something like that to where like they would help with that. And then in terms of the slides like embedded into the side of a hill, that is one of the things that like a landscape architect would help us design based on planning. But like obviously if nobody wants a slide, we wouldn't build it into the, you know, the side. But that's also something too that, you know, if we're looking for inclusivity, those tend to be a little bit better for inclusiveness because you can go walk them up and then bring them down and things like that. So
On the hill versus having to climb a stair or ladder. Got it. Yeah.
all right, anything else from this slide? All right. Then this one's more so for me to kind of gauge and have a backstory of why I'm recommending certain materials, but these might be ones that people will have to look up, but hopefully that's a quick Google.
Is there a standard that we, as a city, would prefer to use?
I have my own personal preferences, but the city does not have an official standard.
What's yours?
The most expensive one. The port in place. That one is the one that's the most accessible, easiest to maintain, doesn't get caught in people's shoes.
Well, and you're seeing more and more.
There is options to do like a hybrid of some of these if we're looking for cost savings. So if we hear from the public that we really want the port in place, but in order to get the amenities that we're looking for, we might need to compromise and have some port in place in some locations and maybe some of the mulch or wood fiber in a different location. It could be a combination of that, but again, that's something that we would use development-wise based on what kind of funding we have. But we would gear towards like what people wanted. Like if we have a resounding sound that everybody's like, nope, we want the whole thing just to be mulch. Okay, mulch it is. All right.
Didn't we remove the pea gravel from Deer Run? Because it's like wasn't as safe. Okay. Should we have that as an option?
They are cost-effective options, so just kind of depends.
Okay.
All right. Are there any courts that I'm missing from this one? Or fields, courts or fields?
Well, so like
You want to add the Gaga?
soccer, football, lacrosse can all technically be played on one field.
Yeah, so that's why there's also the multi-use sports field option. The only thing with these is like, do they want them permanently striped, and do we want a permanent goalpost? Do we want like those types of things? So it's like if you want a permanent football field with a goalpost, that would be different than a multi-use field.
Okay.
So and again, with the rank choice, I can modify this to make it easier and less time consuming.
Is the space big enough for a disc golf course?
It could have elements, maybe not a professional course, but it would, both of them have space for holes, but it would very much depend on what other amenities were there.
Well, we also, this is, I feel like I'm bringing back Deer Run conversation. We also talked about like Deer Run at the time had putt-putt or a little
Yeah, just a putting green.
one little putting green. So I don't know if that's something we want to include as an optionality or not.
Or allow people to put it under other, I mean, there's another option.
That's true.
And I think that was unique at Deer Run because it was within the golf course. I think that made it a little more unique to that community.
I can tell you two of my grandkids live in Lakeville, and when we go there and watch them, we take them to a park and they have a mini golf course that gets big time use. It's free. You have to bring your own,
Equipment.
yeah, but it's heavily used. At least when I've been there, maybe not all the time.
I can add in a mini golf course or a putting green on as an option.
And that's
You never
something
know,
that
maybe
Yeah.
people will love it.
there's somebody, that's
Yeah.
something that isn't, I mean, there's no private business that's here that we'd be competing with, so.
And is it like one hole?
No, it was 18 holes.
Oh my
I
God.
don't know if we would do something
wasn't-
that big, but we could totally do
It
something.
wasn't like Pirates Cove or anything. It was just it was a mini golf, but it was.
Like a mini putting green.
Yeah, it was, I mean, they had the angles, you bounce off it, no clown, you're not shooting at a clown's nose.
Kind of like Centennial Lakes, if you guys have ever been there. And
Yes, yeah.
That one's like a mini putting.
Yeah, it's not, there wasn't that big as Centennial.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I can add that. Anything else missing from this list?
Because what is the question? This is sports fields or courts? I mean, also bocce is kind of making a comeback at like
Sure.
the breweries and stuff. Or wineries. I don't know if we're looking to be unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
The ice rink, is that on this one or a different one? I'm trying to remember.
That was on a different question. But if you guys want me to add it to this one specifically, I can do that. Because that was listed on the like general amenities. Do you want me to put it on this one as well?
I think you should.
It's kind of sport themed.
Otherwise, you're gonna have people
Sure.
in the case that it wasn't on.
Absolutely. All right, anything else? Okay. And then this one is a big open arch one. This one, again, this is a very long one, but of course you can just click. This is the same question that came from the park survey that was conducted a couple years ago. The reason it's included in here is to see if there's a change in the temperature. This particular type of question will probably be consistent in all of this, as Victoria is a growing community. And so I want to ensure that we're getting consistent information. So as we are continuing with the big picture of the growth of Victoria and the things that we want, I want to have some sort of a rubric to be able to measure, has the vision changed or are we still consistent in looking for these things? So lots of options and amenities on here, but these are the same ones that we've been asking in the past, which I can also include some of the ones that maybe have been added in addition to.
How was that question worded? What is the language at the top? The future park developments. Okay, so beyond. I don't know if we need to
Should you say like for
specify that.
parkland not yet dedicated?
So it's for future park.
I don't want to use the word not yet dedicated because that might, like, these might also be taken into consideration for parks that currently exist that we need to update.
Re-updating? Okay.
I do think since the parks, like the Hunters Brook and Marsh Hollow are not yet parks, this could be a little confusing, but everything here is future.
Yeah, if you're really thinking beyond Marsh
Or should I
Hollow
say considered for future citywide park developments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
something so that you're looking beyond those two parks.
I could even start the question with thinking forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be good.
Also, I mean, do you need to say that covered by dome in winter? Because like, to me, that's like very different than just having like there are many communities that now have baseball, softball fields, lacrosse fields in their community parks, but that don't have a dome.
AstroTurf fields are different than those types of parks.
Okay,
So those are covered in the winter. You would not want to not have an AstroTurf uncovered. So there's different types of turfs. This one specifically is one that you would need to cover.
oh, so then is another one just like,
There's different fields that are listed.
is there one that covers just those like
Like general fields.
other fields that are not grass then? I don't know the right term then.
A
Yeah.
multi-use turf field.
Yeah,
Yeah,
is it in here somewhere? Maybe not. Nope, I can add it.
okay. Because it does allow for this spring play, which is really hard for multiple sports.
Cool. And then I will capture any that we've talked about that aren't in this list as well. All right, any other feedback for this one? Awesome. And then this one's just a programmatic one to just kind of gauge what types of programs or events that people are wanting. It's not all encompassing, and there is an option for them to type in other if there's something specific. But these are ones that have either been brought up, have been done in the past, have been mentioned by community members, senior advisory committee, things like that.
I guess I was questioning why we were asking about programming when this survey was park specific. It's just, it adds to the length of the survey, so.
Some of this is utilization of the spaces, because if we're developing the land and we want to have a youth camp there or a sports program there or, movies in the parks events or something like that, it would dictate what kind of spaces that we would need.
Can you go up? I know I answered this, but I was just. Okay.
Come on.
To make a selection.
Apparently. No. Let me go.
Yeah, it made me choose one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope that wasn't
There you go.
a response, because I just chose one.
All right. And then open-ended, what other stuff do you want us to know? And then the last couple ones are just demographic ones that are asked on every survey. So,
So what would be our goal for the number of surveys we'd like to get back?
as many as possible. So surveys are one of those things, and we've talked about this before, that percentage of population, typically we look to anywhere between, like, you'd be surprised, 10% of the population participating in the survey is actually a really large number of participation. And so we would look for something like that, obviously as many as possible. So some of the things that we are going to be doing, we're going to be putting QR codes to access this on park signs. So we'll put it at the future sign so that people can see it specifically when they're driving by, that, hey, we're gathering feedback for this. We'll have it at some of our major key locations that people frequently visit, like our larger community parks, the rec center, at downtown Victoria. We'll also have paper copies that will be available for anyone that needs paper copies. We'll be doing the mailers to let people know that this is coming, as well as, here's the survey and here's the events to come to. And then again, we'll be at all of these tabling events to try to gather that stuff. And then the public engagement or the park engagement events that you guys have been shared about that you're invited to attend. Those are other areas that we would be able to talk to people to not only have them come to the event, but also participate in the survey. So hopefully we'll get a lot of feedback. People are really passionate about the parks that are in their specific neighborhood. So hopefully at minimum, we would get pretty good response rate from our new residents, but those communities are also growing. So there's still some vacant homes in those areas. So, so we're looking for as many as possible, but that type of percentage is pretty typical.
And I guess, it probably goes without saying that we're collecting information multiple ways. This is just one. we're getting some information. It's not set up as a scientific survey, so it's hard to extrapolate from these survey results to the population as a whole. But it does provide some information, as long as we don't use it like it's the absolute, that we're using it to
Nope.
kind of get to the next set of questions when we go to those community engagement events. So,
Yeah, so this survey will be accessible throughout the entire summer, and so we won't review the survey results until this fall. So at these community engagement events, this will be something that it's like we'll be encouraging people to fill out the survey.
all right.
So did you say like on yard signs too? Okay, so like there could be one down here that we see on car show nights?
Right.
Okay. Awesome.
And those are pretty effective. Once we did the VRC survey, once we stuck those out, we got a ton of people responding.
Yeah,
So,
great.
Is there any specific thing like staff other than like community interest, like what it is, what you all are trying to learn the most from it, or like what indication within the survey would help you the most as you pull this?
I think in terms of like what amenities people are looking for, because I think it's going to be really telling if people are like, we don't want a playground, because that's typically what people say at parks. And so that would be an opportunity for us to develop a brand new type of park location or things like that. If people are wanting playgrounds, it's going to be, what are those amenities though? Because we want to make sure that they're different and unique to those particular areas. And so I think with these, it's as much as we can get that's going to be able to create a trajectory, because obviously the things that I've talked about with in terms of like we want to play off the natural landscape. So for Marsh Hollow, there will inevitably be some sort of a natural element to it because of that wetland area. But what else do we want to tie into that? And so the way that people answer this and how they use the parks and how they're accessing these spaces and who's accessing the spaces is really going to impact the direction of how we do that. And there's a lot of, I mean, you know, I've got experience working with stuff like this. There's a lot of really great companies that provide really great feedback and, you know, expertise in making proposals for what those spaces look like. So this is a tool in kind of launching us forward and making sure that we're just gathering the right information to meet the needs of the people in that area.
So we meet with the Hunters Brook community in June, I believe, which is after our next meeting. At our June meeting, will you be helping us kind of prep for our role?
So me prepping you guys for those engagement events will not be during the meeting. I will give you information via email, so stay tuned for that. All right. Any other feedback about the survey? Wonderful. Thank you guys so much for your input. It is super helpful, and I will make the changes that we had talked about. And you'll see a summary of the changes that we had finalized and agreed upon in the meeting notes the next time.
Okay. Anything else? Any other business? Okay. Hearing none, thank you, Jenna, for teeing us up for us. And it's a lot easier providing feedback when you got a lot of the things there and can react to it as opposed to trying to dream it up ourselves. So thanks, and thanks for the input. It was good input from everybody participated. That's great to see. With that, seeing that there's no other business, a motion be in order to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. I'm just gonna go. Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Sorry.